Afternoon and welcome. Thank you to everyone that's taken the time to join us today. My name is Andy McAleer. I'm part of the digital supply chain team at SAP, and I will be the host for today's webinar. We're excited for our topic today. MONAT is a global leader and distributor of hair, skin, and wellness products. We're going to hear from them today about how they grew and improved their business during the tough times of COVID, aided by the implementation of SAP's extended warehouse management solution. So we've got speakers today from MONAT, SAP, and Alpine Supply Chain Solutions here to tell us about the MONAT success story. We're going to keep the webinar to an hour or less. Everyone is on mute to eliminate background noise. You won't be able to take yourself off mute, but do please feel free to use the chat function to ask any questions of the team that's presenting. We've got some team members that'll monitor the room and answer any questions that you have over the course of the presentation. Lastly, we are recording the webinar for those that are unable to join live today and would like to listen to it later. So to introduce the speakers for today, we've got Matt Warner, the ex-CEO of MONAT. We've got Cam Patters from SAP, part of the SAP's Digital Supply Chain Center of Excellence. And we've got Michael Wohlwend, who is a managing principal at Alpine Supply Chain. So with that, I will turn it over to our speakers for our webinar today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today to hear a little bit more about MONAT and their journey with EWM. Like Andy mentioned, my name is Cam Patters. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my microphone, or sorry, my monitor, so I'm not confusing myself, and we'll jump right into this. So as context, some of the slides we're going to leave behind with you will have forward-looking statements. So as a legal disclaimer, SAP can certainly change our direction at will, so we don't want to be beholden to all statements. We have a pretty healthy agenda for you today. I'm going to just walk you through a little bit about SAP, our vision, how we look at supply chain, and where warehouse management falls into our solution, what we call design to operate. Then you're going to hear more about MONAT from Matt and their journey with SAP in the EWM space, along with Alpine Supply Chain, who performed the implementation. Can you flip to the next slide? So, I always like to give perspective for those companies or folks that are joining us who aren't familiar with SAP. I'd like to give some background and context of, where SAP is going. And so I think many of you are trying to figure out what we're calling a digital transformation or a digital era. And SAP is actually moving into what we're calling the intelligence era. And I'll share with you how that journey has evolved, not only for us, but the customers that we're going along with and partnering. And so if you think back into, the 60s through the 80s, companies still today, I'm surprised, are running those mainframe AS400 applications. But as we evolved and got to the dot-com era, you saw more of a client server and where the internet started to take off. And then thinking in the mid 2000s, iPhone or Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, where you really saw mobility take shape. And then all of a sudden, everybody had a smartphone, and then the rise and explosion of what we would call big data. That has led into now what we're seeing in terms of where customers are wanting to go, using things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so that's where we get into this concept of intelligent technologies. And so from our perspective, on the next slide, you'll see that SAP has really come a long way. So since our inception in 1972, we've been innovating across, over 25 different industries, supporting, 99 of the world's largest 100 customers using SAP, generating, $46 trillion in commerce. So at the end of the day, innovation is our bread and butter, and that's what customers look to us for. And so as we start to build out, you can see when we talk about that AS400 client server technology moving into mobility, SAP has done the same. And our latest innovation is really this concept of S4HANA. And so first of all, it should stand to reason that HANA was developed back in 2011. I was with SAP when we first announced that, and that was our in-memory platform where we were able to run both the analytical as well as the online transactional processes. And so by marrying those and coupling them together, we were able to essentially speed up the transaction as well as the speed of which customers could do business. And so leading into 2015 is when we announced and also came up with our S4HANA. That essentially replaces, for those customers who are legacy SAP customers, our ECC, which was our previous ERP. And so as we look to that next generation and platform for ERP, we're really focused on these four subjects or words at the top: agility, productivity, connectivity, and sustainability. But what do we mean by that? First, with agility, right? It's being able to proactively and profitably sense and respond to market dynamics. With regards to productivity, it's delivering that high quality, whether they're mass produced or make to order products, faster. As connectivity is relates, it's more on a unified collaborative effort with your trading partners and building out those relationships. And finally, sustainability, core for almost every company today. We're helping to actively manage the environmental and community impact that you have with your customers. And so our S4HANA core certainly takes care of the ERP, but you'll see here that we've actually bolstered that with our supply chain solution. So when you think about supply chain from SAP, we're doing everything from designing the product with our enterprise portfolio and project management to manufacturing that product with our digital manufacturing cloud, to actually delivering and executing on that project. And that's where you see our transportation management and what we're going to speak more about, our warehouse management solutions, being driven by planning, intersecting all of those modules. And lastly, for those customers who are operating or in a asset-heavy industry, our Operate portfolio helps you in terms of predicting your maintenance schedules to ensure that you're running 24/7 or as your business requires. So when we think about that next generation platform, right, it's really what most customers, what we see, or especially during the coming out of the pandemic, was that they didn't have enough insight or visibility as to what was going on. And so we know that being resilient and adaptable and agile are things that are going to continue, whether, we always hear about those, the proverbial ship stuck in the Suez Canal, but more recently, as of last year, we had the Facility Ace. I'm not sure how many of you know about that incident, where that cargo ship was carrying roughly $355 million worth of luxury automobiles like Lamborghinis, Porsches, and Bentleys. And one of those cars caught on fire because of the lithium-ion battery. So as you see this push and change to, EV technology, things like that could happen again. So having that intelligent insight or that information, knowing where things are in terms of your supply chain, is what companies were looking for. And getting that information really relies on this kind of concept of the networks, and whether they're freight networks or interoperable networks or even visibility providers. We're seeing, again, customers collaborating with their different partners in these networks, sitting on top of those core solutions that I just talked about in the previous slide, like our warehouse management, transportation management, et cetera. And so as it comes to our view and our portfolio, our bread and butter is based on warehouse management and transportation, but we are also augmenting that. And I'm going to share with you a couple details around our cloud solutions based on warehouse robotics and warehouse insights. Moving into that automation layer, customers are starting to say, hey, look, labor is an issue. Where am I going to get qualified resources. And more importantly, those qualified resources, I want them to be able to do more heavy lifting, so to speak, in terms of adding value to the organization. So by using by using robotics in the warehouse or having connected devices, that not only streamlines those operations, but allows those warehouse personnel to actually focus on value drivers for the business rather than those mundane tasks of perhaps picking or putting away or the typical warehouse type of activities. But as you start to look into our ecosystem of these connected devices supporting automation, these are just a limited or selected number of vendors that we're working with. So many of these names I'm sure you recognize, but even the ones that maybe you're not familiar with, this just shows and tells the story that SAP, we're constantly evolving. We're partnering with many different companies in the areas of automation and connecting workers in the warehouse. So just to further expand on the next slide, we'll share what we call our latest focus, and that's on warehouse robotics. The key here is, robots in the warehouse, that's nothing new, right? Robots have been used in business, especially in the manufacturing since the, mid 60s. But as we're starting to see this evolve in the warehouse, we're seeing robots helping humans doing their tasks in terms of picking, helping in terms of that safety. So when you think about objects that are very heavy, right now humans don't have to necessarily lift that. Robots can perform that task, as well as we're using warehouse robotics to help automate and making it faster to put away or pick, right? Which means ultimately better utilization of your assets and better throughput. Continuing on in terms of warehouse robotics and how we're assisting labor in the warehouse, we partnered with Apple last year to develop the warehouse operator mobile app. And essentially, it's taking that native functionality in an iPhone. So this is currently built on the iOS platform. But using the camera, we're able to scan multiple barcodes and being able to make sense of that information embedded in that barcode, if you will, and then passing that to the respective systems, whether it's the warehouse management system in terms of serialization, ultimately back into your ERP system, helping you, again, to transact a lot quicker and be more efficient. Although we developed with Apple on the iOS platform, we are also going to be developing this for the Android devices out there as well. Continuing on, just another area of where we're starting to see the intersection of warehousing is with our yard logistics and warehouse insights. Yard logistics is really everything as soon as that truck checks into your yard, if you will, managing all the operations within the yard up until that truck arrives the dock door for loading or unloading, as the case may be. And with our warehouse insights, we're helping to further do automation in terms of your resources, and resources in this case would be forklifts. And a lot of customers ask, when we think about forklifts, does it also help optimization around labor? And I always say yes, until we get to the point where forklifts are autonomous, and then perhaps that labor component may fall out. But certainly we're managing that. And so just to leave you with just examples, and you're going to hear a lot more from Monet, these are the typical types of drivers and benefits that customers are seeing by using our warehouse solution. And I'd like to have Matt Warner from Monet tell us a lot more about his journey with SAP and the benefits that he's starting to see with warehouse management. Over to you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Cam. Nice to be here with all of you. I hope we can answer a few of your questions as we get through this presentation about our journey as a customer with Michael and his team as the implementation partner, and obviously SAP as the core software. So in mid to late 2019, as a business, being on the executive committee, we were going through our typical business planning. And in 2019, we were projecting 20 to 50% growth in 2020. Well, as we all know, COVID happened and very quickly our plans changed drastically in a good way. But let me just give you a little bit of background first to MONAT. MONAT is a health and wellness company based in Miami, Florida. And here you can read our mission statement, but basically we sell premium hair care and beauty products for a customer base that is in 9 countries today. So we do business in Canada, United States, 5 countries in Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. And our core products, we started in 2014, so we're not even a 10-year-old company yet. Our main channel is through direct sales or multi-level marketing. So all of our products are sold to our end consumer through a volunteer distributor who signs up and sells and promotes our products to the end consumer. Although direct consumers can purchase directly from the company through an e-commerce channel. So what were some of our challenges? So as I mentioned, in 2019, we were projecting anywhere from 20 to 50% growth towards the end of 2019. We started out with that projected growth happening the first couple of months, and then the COVID shut down the world in March of 2020, and our growth rates significantly changed overnight. So where most of the world was going in to buy hair care products or skincare products in your regular retail stores, many people immediately were afraid to go into stores in fear of catching COVID. So immediately, because we were an online business, our growth started to skyrocket. And all of a sudden we were projecting 100% and even 200% growth rate in that year. So with that, immediately we know we were going to be out of facility space. At that time, we were only operating out of one facility in Miami. We had very manual processes. So everything was pretty much paper-based. We have limited SOPs. So we were a very manual state of business at that time. Obviously, our labor was high. We immediately went from 1 shift of fulfillment to 4 shifts and running around the clock. That was a nightmare, but we were able to pull it off by adding a lot more people. Obviously, the cost went up significantly. We were building boxes. So just to give you an idea, we were shipping 10 to 20,000 orders a day out of Miami to our customers within the United States, as well as doing B2B replenishment to all of our international markets. So with all this manual work, we were actually by hand building out boxes, small boxes to put the hair care products in, or skincare, shampoos or conditioners in box, and ship those directly to our customers. So we were doing that all very manual with paper-based in a standard gravity flow racking. And additional to that, we were building a lot of kits where we would marry finished good products to other finished good product in a final kit. So again, some very difficult challenges where we had to go from 1 to 4 shifts. So, and immediately we're going to grow out of the space, the automation that we didn't have, we needed very quickly. So what was our approach? Our approach is we didn't have internally all of the resources, of course, to do this. We're trying to do our day job and keep our head above water. So we employed Michael and his team to help us figure out what do we do in our current situation. And we were kind of in a dire need to get some help very quickly. So in came Michael and his team as implementation partners and great experience with SAP. First thing did is help us step away from the fires that we're burning and just look at, okay, where are we going to be in 3, 4, 5 years from now? So with that, they were able to help us see the forest, if you will, and understand what our current limitations were and where we needed to go. So they helped us put a strategic roadmap together, which was very helpful. And with our projected growth projections, you can see here that in early 2020, we changed it to a 200% growth rate. We ended up doing 130, but nonetheless, it was massive growth. You could see that we were then projecting 50%, 40%, all the way to 20% through 2024. So we
Hey, Matt,
needed
why
to
don't you
act.
explain, explain
Sure.
fulfillment versus assembly versus international. I know you said you're global, but maybe talk about the operation specifically.
Sure, sure. So fulfillment, when I'm talking about fulfillment here, this is US based fulfillment. So in Miami, we ship all of our orders basically out of Miami to the whole of the United States to our customers that place orders in the US. If an order was placed in Canada for a Canadian customer, we actually had a warehouse in Canada and we'd ship that from Canada to that customer in Canada. And likewise, we had a shared facility in Europe to ship to our European customers, and likewise in Australia and New Zealand. So this fulfillment was just with the United States. The assembly, however, we being the corporate headquarters would often do a lot of the assembly for and in behalf of our sister companies, whether or not that was in Canada or Europe, etc. And then international, this was our international business where we had to do B2B replenishment. So we replenish our international markets by cases and pallets, because then once that product gets to that local warehouse in turn does the local customer fulfillment, which is B2C. So just to give you an idea, we were doing B2C and B2B out of our corporate headquarters.
And for those of you that might recall, the predecessor of EWM came out of the spare parts planning. So it really came from that side. So, here we are 2019, and we're going to talk about using SAP EWM for each pick, cartonization picking directly into the outbound box, where the international was normal, right? Full pallet in, full pallet out, or, full pallet in, cases out. So EWM, no problem there. Matt had experience in his previous life with SAP and asked me, hey, can we do EWM each pick? And I said, absolutely. So we knew we had the right product. We just had to figure out how to get there. So
correct. Here are some of the estimations of the space after doing the strategic mapping. And they again, Alpine looked at every single SKU, the weight, the dimensions to give us actual what we believe would be the actual utilization or space requirements. So you can see here in 2020 with the 200% projected growth, we would need approximately just north of 8,000 pallet locations. Just to give you an idea, our current distribution center that I had just upgraded just a year or two before into a nicer, newer warehouse only had 70,000 square feet of space, and the max pallet positions was 4,000. So we were in a world of hurt. Anyway, so you can see when we saw 8,000, we go, uh-oh, we better get something going. So here you can see how the planning requirements, we started to put on this little roadmap. Michael and his team did this, started to space out here what we would need in the way of additional staging space in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, etc. You begin to see very quickly that obviously we would not have sufficient space to run our business. So,
and just real quickly, on this side of the building over here, that was the international. You're bringing full trailers in and shipping out full international trailers. Where on this side over here was the each pick for the domestic business. And then along this wall here and a little bit of across the top, they were doing the value-added service and the kitting.
Correct. And just to give you a different view too, on this storage side, the purple of 2024 storage, as Michael said, that was primarily B2B business, bulk coming in and bulk going back out. But the right side was the B2C, where we would pick inventory by the eaches. But we didn't even have inventory visibility to that. We basically had bulk inventory visibility at inventory management level, but we did not know where the eaches were, where they were located. So it was a challenge from a visibility and performance standpoint. So what were some of the key findings? So again, we were going to run out very quickly by Q2 of 2020, and we weren't going to have enough space. Next is our Doral assembly area, again, where we would do kitting, was going to run out of space because we were going to need it just for bulk storage. Equipment, we did not have enough equipment or the ideal equipment. We just had single deep push single deep racking it in this old facility and narrow aisles, but we were just insufficient with equipment and didn't have enough racking. We needed to benefit from automation in our assembly process, and our picking system was manual. It was all paper-based. So we had print orders. We'd have to go and find the order. We did a lot of promotions, so we were always changing out the bin locations manually. It was a headache and very, very painful. So obviously, because of the manual work, we saw that we had huge labor savings if we could automate much of our fulfillment area. And then obviously at the end, you could see that we needed more visibility and controls, which we looked to SAP to provide that with their software. So basically our first assessment, as we were looking initially to go to another location, because all of you who are familiar with the United States, knowing Miami is the end of the road, it's not a great place to have a fulfillment center shipping orders all the way to the West Coast from Miami. So we knew after doing some network analysis that a Dallas location in Texas would be much better for our business. So we had planned to install a new building in Dallas and build out a new state-of-the-art, fully automated system with cartonization, visibility to the unit level, pick to light, automatic put away. You could see here that 354% improvement with adding the automation with what we were planning to do. So lines per hour, we were currently at 81 when they came in and did some analysis with us and watched our processes. We were about 81. With the enhancements of automation, we'd go to at least 120, and we've actually gone above that. So very pleased to see that the promised outcomes are actually surpassing the stated objectives. So we're very, very pleased with that.
So I think, Matt, the partnership that we built was under promise and over deliver. So we built a very conservative business case that said, if we turn on EWM, we're going to be able to pick directly into the outbound carton, get rid of all the packers, do directed put away, right? Not letting the users find the open slot, let the system find the open slot, and then leveraging pick the light to go from 81 lines per hour to 120. So we built the business case. Everything was great. But Matt, you always kept giving me presents.
You're right. And you remember this very well. So what happened, we were growing so fast that even our corporate headquarters and our staff, because we were hiring a lot of people that time, we decided as an executive committee that we wanted to have a new corporate headquarters sooner than we wanted a Dallas. So we threw a severe curveball to Michael and his team and said, just kidding, we're not going to Dallas in phase one. Phase one is now going to build a new corporate headquarters, including a new distribution center.
And I think the big thing is, okay, how do we help educate the owners that even though they doubled the size of the building, it's still too small? It's a beautiful corporate office, don't get us wrong, but we still, based on the STA and the results, we needed a bigger facility than they actually bought. So we said, okay, here's a couple things we're going to do to get through the busy season. Number one, we have to fix the rough fulfillment. So if you guys remember the picture in the other one, it was just a straight line. It wasn't there. So these are 10 or actually 6 mirrored pick lines where they only have about 150 to 175 items that are moving. So to hit the volumes, each of these are mirrored. So the left side and the right side are exactly the same, 175 items on both sides. And what was happening is they were coming out and they were going right to a manifestation or a repack station manifestation and go out. And they were double, triple, quadruple. We have pictures of these boxes being stacked on top of each other. By just implementing a non-powerized conveyor and adding the right level of accumulation, we could see exactly how to get the order fulfillment out, minimize some stuff. So this was a quick win, got them through it. But you can see all of these pack stations and the analysis required to understand how much accumulation, how many cartons per hour can these pick, how long can they pack. So we did that. Then the other big part was, and I'll let you talk about that, getting a 3PL in Salt Lake.
Yeah, so even though we made that adjustment so we could have a better throughput and better efficiency with the snake line, we called it, the addition of the accumulation, which was very helpful. And it also helped train them up for the final state of where we moved as well. So it's a good training wheel exercise that we had for about a year as well. But in addition to that, with our forecast, we knew we could not, even with running 4 shifts, we are not going to be able to keep up with the growth. So we made a strategic decision to go and find a 3PL out in Salt Lake City to offload some of that bandwidth to help have another facility help us keep up with the growth. So we onboarded a group in Salt Lake City, started doing B2B shipments to them, and they would do B2B or B2C shipments to our customers, especially on the West Coast. And that helped to offset and help us get through an incredible busy time in 2020. Then we decided as we were going forward, we needed to break up the project into 2 main phases. So we did phase 1, which as you can see here is the install the SAP EWM, which was the receiving, put away in the policy, picking orders in preparation for the full pick to light system. So that was what we decided to do in phase 1.
Yeah. And I think the big thing for us is knowing that, right, those e-commerce orders going direct to the consumer and the cartonization wasn't necessarily SAP EWM sweet spot. We previously had experience, like, hey, I can receive a full pallet, I can put a full pallet away, I can pick a full pallet as well, right? I can pick cases to wood. So we knew that was good. But we also spun up an instance for that 3PL in Salt Lake. So you have visibility across S4 for all your facilities, right?
Correct. That is correct. Yes. So we just added another branch plant there, and we have the visibility going and what they had on the shelf so we could keep our inventories in sync. That is correct.
Perfect. All right. So, hey, Michael, the ownership bought this new facility. How much can we fit in it? and what can we get out of it, right? So the big thing for us is we wanted to get that bulk receive and international shipping up and running. We wanted to move assembly over to the new headquarters. We wanted to accommodate the packing requirements. So as MONAT owns the prescriptions, the subscriptions, the mixtures, they use outside co-packers. But to do that, now Matt had never done this before. Now he's receiving the finished good containers, the lids, the packaging material, and then providing it to a co-packer. So we never had that in our mix before. So hence we needed another facility outside. We looked at our standard operating procedures, and now we've got EWM. So we've turned on cartonization. We're picking directly into the outbound carton. We've got triggered replenishment so that the minute that you get down to 1 case or left in the 4 pick location, we're replenishing it. And then we're picking all the raw materials and the component parts for the value-added services and kitting. Now, the key was we had some stuff up and running in the new headquarters, but we weren't going to move that fulfillment over until after peak season. And, you know, when it rains, it pours. We got a very, very interesting dynamic. So a lot of you may recall that there was this condominium complex in Miami that fell. And believe it or not, it was in the same county as MONAT. So we couldn't get an inspector to come and give us approval or occupancy of the building because they were all looking at condos versus warehouses. So, you know, it was a little time consuming, but this is the new facility. So at the top up here, this is the corporate office, beautiful front office, training, office break area, lecture halls, just absolutely gorgeous. And there's a little tunnel that connects the actual corporate office to the distribution center. Now, if we were to lay this building out to maximize the space, it wouldn't look like this. But Michael, a lot of our independent sales agents come and we want to take them on a tour. And what's the coolest part of the tour? So up at the top here, you've got 4 combi carton erectors. So being that 80% of their volume comes from 2 sides of the boxes, we were able to actually put a combi carton erector that comes down. Actually, the warehouse control system puts a unique identifier on it. we actually will go and then it will round robin 10 cartons at a time down each of these mirrored pick lanes. And then the pickers will use Matthews Pick to Light. They will induct that carton. It lights it up. There's 2 zones, so they do a little bit of a pick and pass. And then once it's done, it's on the takeaway conveyor, which will come here to an upward spiral. Will come upstairs, actually 3 void fill lines, top tape, and then a Panda print and apply, and then it comes out here, and then it has 4 down spirals and goes directly onto the appropriate UPS, FedEx, ground, air up there. So this green area here is where we do all the case picking. So whether it's a replenishment for our pick module or it's a case pick for our international, comes out of here. Now, Matt had said his old facility, that's all they had was single deep selective rack. At the end of the storage type analysis, we identified 4 deep pushback rack, 3 deep pushback rack, 2 deep pushback rack, based on he had so many pallets of the same items on hand. And then in addition to that, we have a hazmat cage over here. And then we've got inbound and outbound staging, which was a huge thing. If you guys remember, we knew with the volumes, they didn't have enough inbound and outbound staging. So we were able to accommodate how many dock doors they needed that they were going to receive and ship out of on a daily basis. So what was really difficult is we laid this out, we did this, but we said we can't get rid of the old building. We still need it for all the storage. So anything you want to add about the new building, Matt?
No, the primary purpose that we used it for was for the bulk storage because it's close to water, at least for the international B2B, but B2C is not ideal. And that's why we still have plans to go to Dallas for the middle of the country for the United States. But for us and for our type of business, the design worked very, very well for us, and we're very thrilled with the result.
Yeah, so we installed those 5 spiral conveyors. You can see that. So that's the outbound dock when they come down. We got the conveyor and then the 30 pick to light station. So this is a little tighter, right? So these are the combi. We got a Panda here getting inducted. On the lower, on the top level is the cartons come down, and when they get picked and they're done, they get put on the lower level, which will take them away. This area over here is promotional items or very large Gaylords. And then at the end here, we did have pallet positions for some of the large faster movers, but this is all pick to light. And then we said upstairs, you had the Pandas with the void fill. So everything came upstairs, separated across these 3. And then this is the value added services area on a upper level of their facility. And then this is a picture. So when we actually went and toured the facility for the very first time, this is what the picture looked like. And then you could see that their business was so crazy. So this top left, they were putting product in there before they actually had any of the rack or anything up. And then finally, we were able to erect the rack and the sprinkler system and those types of things. That was another fun one. Oh, right. It's got an ESFR. We're great. No, that's an 8-inch diameter. The new spec is 10 inches. And the fact that you didn't have a flammable room and you're only 1.5 miles down the street, now you need a flammable room. So, you know, a lot of curveballs as we went through this project for sure.
For sure.
I think the big thing is that we did use a warehouse control system. And we built 4 carton erectors to do 42 cartons per minute. And so we were actually able to hit 50,000 orders a day at 42 cartons a minute. The 10 mirrored pick to light lines with 178 pick faces on each of those lines. We have the inline scale to be able to validate that we are not shipping either over or under. We had the Pandas in line and the spiral. So this big thing was, right, if you remember, we had 33 pack stations. Now we have 6 people upstairs doing void fill, top tape, and out. So, I mean, 33 to 6, we saved a ton of people by cartonizing, picking directly into the outbound carton and getting away from all those packers. I think the other thing is, you know, 260 was on average. We had some pickers hitting 310 lines per hour, some picking, you know, 225 lines per hour. We took brand new people, brought them over there, trained them, and they were hitting 220, 260. And our business case was built on 120. Needless to say, Matt and his team look like rock stars. Exactly. So Matt, tell us a little bit about the results.
So again, overall, after we completed phase 1 and phase 2, the overall, the big thing was on our bulk storage, right? Major win on the bulk storage. I was a little hesitant at first with the double, triple, quadruple pushback, as well as the drive-in racking. But when we did the analysis for the space we were going to utilize for bulk storage, if we would have used single select racking, we would have only had space for about 5,000 pallet positions. But with the unique high density racking, we had 9,300 pallet positions. So a heck of a lot more storage in the same footprint. So that definitely helped our cause with the inventory consolidation and the improved end to end, no question about it. Whereas before we didn't have full visibility, had visibility to a pallet location. Now we have full visibility to the pallet, to the case, and to the each. So I know exactly what slotting position of shampoo and how many I have in real time. So huge gains in visibility, as well as what Michael already pointed out. Before we were doing human decision making. Now it was system directed. So the system was telling us where to take things, how many units, and that has made a world of difference. The space utilization, as you can see by the picture, all of the space is highly utilized. We have 4 racking tiers, so we go all the way to the ceiling. And the work performance, as Michael mentioned, has been huge. So we're definitely getting the return on our investment. Whereas before, with about the same head count, we would measure before orders per man hour. That was kind of an internal measurement we did, which we would average, say, 20 orders per man hour. Now on a consistent basis, we're at 50 or more orders per man hour. So we could do the same output with a heck of a lot less labor and higher quality as well, right? Because all the rejects would go down a hospital lane, and because of either overweight or underweight, we would manually adjust those and then make the training change with an employee, because we know exactly who picked the order. And if they were supposed to pick 2 shampoos and they by mistake only put 1, we go back and coach that person, make the correction in the inventory, and then send out that order correctly. So not only in improved utilization of the equipment and performance, much better quality to the customer, a lot less returns now that are happening. So very, very pleased with the overall results. The team has embraced it very well. They have definitely grown a lot from more of a blue collar thinking to a white collar thinking, and that will continue to bless our performance and our team for years to come.
Every project has a little bump in the road. Obviously, we learned a couple of key things along the way. But I will tell you, on Monday, 37,500 orders were done in 7 hours.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, great. So I think a couple of the keys, during the pandemic, lead times went in October when we originally planned it from 22 weeks. I'm sorry, from 12 weeks to 22 weeks. And then in February, they were saying, hey, it's, now it's going to be 16 to 32 weeks. So the semiconductors, the actual equipment, material handling, everybody focusing on their Amazon effect or direct to home was huge. The permits go early and go often. We saw a city fire marshal arguing with a county fire marshal. So depending on where your facility is, you're going to need the city, you're going to need the county, you're going to make sure that they're lock and step. So that way, when the fire suppression and those types of things in the flammable room, you can get your stuff there. We did have a little bit. I mean, we like Unarco. We've used them many a times, but they did ship us a little bit less than we expected, which impacted the racking within the hazardous area and a couple of beams and frames. So, we put the right bill of material. We just didn't get it. They made right by it. We got it in, but it just took us a little while to get the final layout done. And then one of the things that we've learned on those drive-in racks, so whether you're going to use a Raymond truck or a Crown truck, they have different edges and different end pieces. So you got to look at that and then look at the spec of the drive-in truck to make sure that everybody's safe. Any other key lessons learned there, Matt, you want to share?
Yeah, just on the rack issue again, the racking's worked, at first we were a little hesitant, as I mentioned, but it's been working great. We love it. The thing on sometimes the angle iron is sharp. So some of those now, they actually can round those. So therefore you can either put an end cap on it, or you have rounded corners, so it's not as much as a safety hazard. So at first we were concerned about the sharp edges. We've worked our way around that and we haven't had any accidents, which is good.
So very cool. So obviously, we've got the system up and running. It's been being very successful. SAP, you've got Canada, you've got Salt Lake, you've got the 2 facilities in Miami, all having visibility of your inventory. Obviously, the productivity has been a huge gain. What other benefits have you seen in this overall program here?
So again, here are just some additional listing out what the overall program phase 1 and phase 2 have been able to help us do. The big one was, no question about it, the automation. We are a major fulfillment house here in Miami for our US distribution. So that is saving us millions of dollars on cost savings with labor on an ongoing basis. That's been number one by far. Global system improvements, it's just helping us with the visibility to be able to, in a more succinct way, prepare and ship products to our international markets in a more timely basis. That's been huge. Personal development plan. This is something that we've done. We believe that our greatest assets are people. So we assigned a 5% training plan where we would take 5% of their time to help teach and train them on SOPs, best practices, how to use the system even better, and continue to teach and train them. And that has also given us improved productivity as they understand the links in the chain and the cascading consequences if they pull the wrong trigger, so to speak. And then just 2 billion supply chain. This was just more about business continuity as we've taken what we've learned here and now are globalizing with some other international countries. That's given us additional benefit and basically performance improvements in international countries based off what we've learned here and how we can actually fill and load pallets and also containers for international markets. Overall warehouse cost savings, because of the improved visibility we have, we're actually able to negotiate better pricing now on boxes and so forth, which has been very, very helpful. You can see that we just finished a process improvement of ISO certification 9001 2015, making us a little bit more efficient, as well as the just what's the last one? I can't see it with the bar.
Just trying to go into the Dallas or Canada.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We're discovering.
Yeah, we still have plans to still open up a Dallas facility as soon as we get things stabilized from an overall sales. The last little bit's a little bit been down because now on the post-COVID side, as we relearn our business a little bit from a sales and marketing standpoint. Here you can see a proud group of people, professionals that came together to make this implementation happen. And you can see there the down spirals in the background, and then the bay doors on the right side of the picture where the products would come, be palletized, and go right onto the truck. So very efficient process. Team learned a ton, and management owners are very happy with what they've seen and what they're getting out of this project.
Absolutely. Andy, we're going to open it up for questions. You got any questions for Matt, Cam, or I?
Yeah, unfortunately, people can't turn themselves off mute. So we were
hit
using
the chat button.
The chat is open.
Questions?
No,
Yeah,
no one's asking anything. But yeah, now's a good time. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to use the chat.
And
I'll ask a question.
go right ahead, Cam.
Yeah, so I'm curious, Matt, if you're familiar, or Michael, what are the next steps for Monet as it relates to SAP software? Are you looking to expand and perhaps move into transportation or any of the other solutions from SAP?
First thing we got to do is we got to upgrade S/4HANA. We're about 14 releases behind, and that's actually underway right now. And then the second thing is BPO. I think that's a big part to get them getting more value from their current asset.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep. Any questions, Andy?
Nothing else in chat right now.
All right. Well, first and foremost, Matt, thank you so much for the partnership. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon to share your story with us. Cam, thanks so much for giving us a little bit of the roadmap. Andy, thanks for the partnership. And for all of you that attended, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. And we wish you the very best of luck with your SAP EWM installs.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.